Right now, across America, Canada, and Australia, 9 outboard motors are gathering dust on dealer floors. These aren't cheap knockoffs from unknown brands. Some carry names that once meant everything in this industry, names that promised power, innovation, and reliability. And yet, month after month, they sit there, unwanted, unsold, exposed. Dealers are slashing prices just to move them. Buyers are walking right past them. And the manufacturers? They're hoping you never find out why. But here's the thing. The reasons these engines failed aren't always what you'd expect. Some broke down on the water, some broke down in the boardroom, and some were doomed before they ever left the factory. Have you ever looked at an outboard and wondered why no one's buying it? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which engines to avoid and which warning signs the industry doesn't want you to see. This is the list no manufacturer wants made public. To understand how 9 outboard motors became the industry's biggest disappointments, you have to go back to a moment when everything felt possible. A moment when boating wasn't just a hobby, it was an escape. In 2020, the world will shut down. Offices closed, airports emptied, and millions of people trapped at home started dreaming about open water. They wanted freedom, they wanted space, they wanted boats. What followed was the biggest surge in recreational boating the industry had ever seen. Dealers couldn't keep inventory on their lots. Manufacturers ran factories around the clock. Waiting lists stretched for months, sometimes years. If you had a boat to sell, you named your price. And someone paid it. The outboard motor market exploded alongside this boom. Mercury, Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda, and a wave of smaller players all ramped up production. Research and development budgets swelled. Engineers were given the green light to dream bigger. More horsepower, more technology, more innovation than the marine world had seen in decades. New models were announced with fanfare and confidence. 600 horsepower flagships, electric prototypes promising silent, emission-free cruising, mid-range engines packed with joystick controls, integrated GPS systems, and smartphone connectivity. The future of boating, manufacturers declared, was arriving ahead of schedule. And for a while, it seemed true. Boats sold before they were built. Engines shipped before paint dried. The marine industry, long considered slow and traditional, suddenly felt like the technology sector. Bold, fast, unstoppable. But markets don't stay hot forever. By 2023, the cracks began to appear. Interest rates climbed. Financing a new boat became expensive. The buyers who had flooded dealerships during the pandemic started to disappear. And the inventory that manufacturers had rushed to build, it began to pile up. By 2024, the correction was undeniable. Showrooms that once had waiting lists now had rows of unsold engines. And by 2025, the consequences became impossible to ignore. But not every engine struggled equally. Some sold through despite the downturn. Others couldn't find buyers at any price. The difference between success and failure came down to timing, trust, and decisions made years before the first unit shipped. The first group of outboards that couldn't find buyers in 2025 share a common trait. They reached for the sky, and the market wasn't ready to follow. Consider the high-horsepower flagship models that launched in recent years. These engines represented the pinnacle of marine engineering. 600 horsepower or more. Supercharged performance. Technology borrowed from aerospace and automotive racing. Price tags that started at $80,000 and climbed from there. When these engines were designed, the math made sense. Luxury boat buyers were spending freely. Yacht builders were integrating multiple outboards into transom designs that demanded raw power. The thinking was simple. Build the best, charge accordingly, and the buyers will come. But by 2025, those buyers had vanished. The wealthy customers who might have purchased these flagship motors had already done so during the boom years. New buyers faced financing rates that made an $80,000 engine feel like a $100,000 commitment. Dealers sat on units for 18 months or longer. Discounts of 30 and 40% became common just to move inventory. And still, many sat unsold. The electric and hybrid outboards faced a different problem. The technology was impressive. Silent running, zero emissions, a vision of boating that aligned with environmental consciousness and regulatory trends. Manufacturers invested heavily, believing early adoption would establish market dominance, but infrastructure didn't keep pace with innovation. Where do you charge an electric outboard at a public boat ramp in Florida or Queensland? How far can you run before range anxiety sets in? For most recreational boaters, the answers weren't reassuring. The technology existed. The ecosystem to support it did not. Then came the mid-range models loaded with advanced features: joystick docking, integrated navigation, smartphone control of throttle and trim. On paper, these engines promised to make boating easier and more accessible. In practice, software bugs plagued early units. Firmware updates arrived late or not at all. Forums filled with complaints from owners who couldn't connect their phones or whose joystick systems failed at the dock. These engines didn't lack ambition. They lacked patience, and the market punished them for it. Not every struggling outboard failed because it tried too hard. Some failed because they didn't try hard enough to stand out. In a crowded market, being average is a death sentence. The legacy refresh models tell this story clearly. These were engines from established brands, redesigned to look modern while keeping the mechanical foundations that had worked for years. The pitch was appealing. Same reliability you trust. Fresh new look. But buyers weren't convinced. The problem was positioning. These engines weren't innovative enough to excite boaters looking for the latest technology. They weren't affordable enough to attract budget-conscious buyers hunting for value. They sat in the middle, belonging to no clear category. Dealers struggled to explain why someone should choose them over a proven older model at a discount or a genuinely new design at a similar price. Without a compelling story, these engines became background noise in showrooms full of louder options. The budget imports faced the opposite challenge. Several manufacturers from emerging markets attempted to break into North American and Australian dealerships with aggressive pricing. Engines that undercut established brands by 30 or 40%. On specification sheets, they looked competitive. Horsepower matched. Features compared favorably. The value proposition seemed obvious. But reputation matters in the marine industry. Boaters talk to each other. Mechanics share experiences. And the questions that circulated were difficult to answer. Would parts be available in 5 years? Would warranty claims be honored without hassle? Could local dealers service these engines, or would owners face weeks of waiting? Without a track record of reliability and support, price alone couldn't overcome skepticism. Finally, some engines simply targeted markets that no longer existed. Specific horsepower categories designed for boat classes that had fallen out of favor. As hull designs evolved and buyer preferences shifted toward either smaller, fuel-efficient packages or larger, high-performance setups, these middle-ground engines found themselves without an audience. The boats they were built for weren't being built anymore. The final group of struggling outboards carries the heaviest burden. These engines didn't fail because of timing or positioning. They failed because boaters stopped believing in them. Trust is the currency of the marine industry. When you're miles from shore, your engine isn't just a machine, it's a promise that you'll get home safely, that your family will be protected, that your investment will hold its value for years to come. When that promise is broken, recovery takes more than a press release. Consider the models with documented recall histories. Every manufacturer has faced recalls at some point. It's part of building complex machines. But how a company handles those recalls determines whether customers forgive or remember. Some engines earned reputations for repeated issues. Gear case failures, fuel system problems, electrical gremlins that appeared and reappeared despite dealer visits. Even after fixes were implemented and improvements announced, buyers remained wary. The internet has a long memory. Forum threads documenting failures stay searchable for years. Review videos accumulate views. When a potential buyer types a model name into a search engine, the first results can define their perception before they ever visit a showroom. For some engines, that digital trail became an anchor that no marketing budget could lift. Corporate instability created different trust problems. When parent companies restructured, merged, or faced financial difficulties, ripple effects reached the dealer network. Mechanics wondered about parts availability. Dealers questioned warranty reimbursement timelines. Buyers hesitated, unsure whether the company standing behind the engine today would still exist in 5 years. These concerns weren't always rational. Some restructured companies emerged stronger than before, but perception often matters more than reality. In a market with abundant choices, why take a risk when safer options exist? The engines plagued by persistent quality complaints suffered most directly. Corrosion issues in saltwater environments, lower unit problems that appeared within the first season, owners who felt dismissed when they raised concerns. Word spread through marinas, fishing clubs, and online communities. Mechanics, the trusted advisors of the boating world, began steering customers toward alternatives. Broken trust doesn't heal quickly, and in 2025 these engines paid the price. The weight of unsold inventory doesn't just sit on dealer floors. It presses down on the entire marine industry, reshaping decisions that will echo for years to come. For dealers, every month an engine remains unsold costs money. Floor plan financing charges accumulate. Showroom space stays occupied. Sales staff spend time explaining why a particular model hasn't moved, instead of closing deals on engines customers actually want. Some dealerships have quietly dropped struggling brands entirely, deciding the margin on a difficult sale isn't worth the effort required to make it. Manufacturers have responded with production cuts and strategic retreats. Assembly lines that ran overtime during the boom now operate at reduced capacity. Marketing budgets have shifted away from underperforming models toward proven sellers. In some cases, engines have been discontinued mid-cycle without announcement. They simply vanish from brochures and websites, as if they never existed. For buyers willing to do their homework, 2025 presents opportunity. Deep discounts on quality engines are available for those who understand the difference between a flawed product and a good product caught in bad circumstances. Some of the struggling models aren't bad engines. They're victims of timing, pricing, or marketing failures that have nothing to do with reliability. An informed buyer can find genuine value amid the chaos, but the larger lessons matter more than any individual deal. The 9 worst-selling outboards of 2025 reveal truths the marine industry must confront. Innovation without infrastructure is premature. Technology rushed to market before it's ready damages brands for years. Price alone cannot overcome reputation concerns. And trust, once broken, costs more to rebuild than any engineering budget can cover. The boating world has always been a place where ambition meets reality. Engineers dream of faster, quieter, more efficient machines. Executives chase market share and quarterly targets. And somewhere in between, real people make real decisions about which engines to bolt onto their transoms and trust with their families. The engines that succeed aren't always the most powerful or the most advanced. They're the ones that deliver on their promises, year after year, mile after mile. The ones that bring boaters home. Because in the end, that's all any of us really want. An engine we can count on, a company that stands behind its product, and open water ahead, waiting to be explored. The 9 outboards on this list remind us that reaching for the future only works when you don't forget what matters most. Reliability, honesty, and the quiet confidence that comes from building something that truly works.